Hello, welcome to Ukrainian Connections. My name is Cathy Harris, Katrusha Parashchi Harris. I welcome you to Ukrainian Connections, where we talk about connections in Thunder Bay, Northwestern Ontario, and Canada, with our Ukrainian heritage, our culture, our stories. Today we have a special surprise for you. We are entering the month of March, and we're going to be talking about Pysanky. So I'd like to welcome our special guest today, Mia Huzan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Mia. I'm a Ukrainian dancer. This is how I know Cathy. I'm very interested in maintaining Ukrainian traditions and culture, so I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you very much. Yes. So in each of our shows, we do showcase several artifacts, either items of my own or ones that are on loan from other people, mostly in Thunder Bay. And today there's no exception. So today I'm going to start talking about these first because I often run out of time in our show to share some of these stories. So I reached out to several people in Thunder Bay and asked them if I could borrow some of their Pysanky. So today I have some beautiful Pysanky from many artists in Thunder Bay. First, we have some Pysanky here from Betty Karpuk. She came from Saskatchewan and moved to Thunder Bay when she was 18 years old. And she has continually been making Pysanky. She's almost 90, and her eggs are by far so exceptional. They're just gorgeous, such fine detail. And I know my eyes and my eyes are getting worse, and my hands are getting less steady. So I can't imagine the acuity that she has to be able to do such beautiful Pysanky and continue to do them. Many of her eggs are distributed and sold or have been donated to many museums around the world, and many households have some of her Pysanky. I myself actually have one of them. Another very well-known Pysanky artist is Mrs. Yaroslava or Stephanie Romaniuk, and I actually have one of her Pysanky here. And she learned how to make Pysanky when she moved to Thunder Bay at a young age and was married. And as a young bride, she learned from a neighbor off of First Avenue how to do this art. And I actually bought this egg from her last year as she was collecting money for Ukrainian humanitarian aid. And again, her handiwork has been beautiful and shared. As she learned how to make Pysanky, she continued to teach through her younger years. And one of the people that she taught was her daughter, Hanusha. And Hanusha gave me 3 of her Pysanky to show you today. And one of them is on a goose egg. And after the war started in Ukraine, many of our Pysanky became colored with the colors of the Ukrainian flag, with the blue on top representing the sky and the yellow on the bottom of the flag representing the wheat fields and fields of Ukraine. And so that's a very beautiful one. And another Pysanky that she gave for this show shows a different triangle pattern and fishnets inside it. And the triangle is a very common theme in Pysanky, initially from the pagan times, but now related to Christianity with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And if you've ever gone to a Ukrainian church, you'll know that we make the sign of the cross 3 times. So we do a lot of things 3 times. And this beautiful Pysanky in earth tones is from the Trypillian records that have been found in Ukraine. And the Trypillian were tribes that lived in Ukraine and other parts of Europe around there, where they excavated in caves and found pottery and cave artwork with many of these same color tones. So we actually do Pysanky with the tones, we make pottery with it, etc. We also have some beautiful Pysanky from Carling Draper, and Carling learned how to make Pysanky from her baba, and later on her aunt helped her as well. So she's been making them for over 20 years, and she's also teaching her children, and she's helping out with different egg workshops that we've been doing around town. So now I'm just wondering, Mia, if you could tell us about the Pysanky that you brought to show.
Sure. So in here, in this middle plate here, I have some eggs from my baba, my busha is what we called her. So she's where I learned how to make pysanky, and she's the one who taught my brother and I and my parents, and so I owe it all to her. So on here I have some that we've kept from who knows how many years, how old they are, I have no idea. But some designs that I haven't even done, so just some interesting ones that I've found, and yeah, just kind of a testament to the tradition. And so then I brought some eggs that I've made myself too. So here I have some goose eggs that I've done, as well as some chicken eggs and some just little chicken pullets. But yeah, so my grandma was the one who taught us, and absolutely a pillar of the kind of Ukrainian community and Ukrainian tradition, especially within our family and within all of Thunder Bay too.
That's right. She's taught many people not only pysanky but embroidery and lots of different things like that. Now you mentioned pullet eggs, so can you explain what a pullet egg is?
Yeah, so they're the first egg that a chicken lays in the spring. So they're just smaller in size, but still the same as a chicken egg in every other regard. And then on here I also have some duck eggs too. So these ones are slightly bigger than a regular chicken egg, but not quite as big as a goose egg.
Okay, great. So I have some other eggs here as well. I brought some from my mother's attic. She was making eggs into her 90s, and when she was ready to move into a retirement home, she asked me to take the eggs out of the attic that she had. And some of her pysanky are from the region of her father, where she learned how to make the eggs from her neighbor, and she learned about eggs from Bukovina. She learned about eggs from Boykivshina, where my father's village, his family's from. And then she really loved to do reverse eggs, where she dyed them and then she bleached them in the end. So eggs with a lot of white in the finish. Nowadays, we use more of a vinegar wash because the bleach isn't as healthy to have the fumes around you. So some of these eggs look very antique because they are. I also brought some pysanky that my daughters have made to show. Sometimes people look at eggs such as Mia's or the eggs that I've shown here, and they're overwhelmed thinking, oh, I can never do an egg like that. And if we start somewhere, you never know. We have had people in our pysanky workshops in Thunder Bay that start making an egg, and they have innate talent for it. And then some people may take several years to develop it, but without trying it, you don't know. So these first eggs were done when my daughters were 2, 3, and 4 years of age, and then progressed right up to the ages that they were 10 and 11. So you can see the difference in their lines and their themes. When they're younger, they only wanted to do ducks and chickens and bugs and swirlies, and then they got into more formal patterns, and their lines got a lot straighter, and their eggs look more like some of the other eggs here today. And now they're pretty proficient at their pysanky, but they have their own pysanky with them. I also have some pysanky here out front that are pysanky that I have made. And this summer, I actually went to a pysanky workshop, and I learned a new technique that I wanted to learn and didn't know how to do it. So this is called the stained glass technique. And it's pretty fun because it does look like a stained glass in the end, and I was happy to learn that. And I was actually gifted this egg. I didn't do this one, and this is a drop pull, or drapoinka, I think it's called. I'm not saying it right, sorry. Where you drop and pull the wax on the egg. So it's just a different technique, and it gives you a different look. And it's very common in the Boykivshina region of Ukraine. And speaking of regions, I also have a display here that I purchased pysanky from a lady out of Kiev, and she's done a lot of research on pysanky and understands the different regional differences in pysanky. And I love this display because the patterns are maybe not necessarily as intricate as some we have on display here, but they're all very unique to the region, and I think that's pretty cool. I also have a few different types of egg shells here. These are emu eggs, and And I have a little blue egg there that's from a normal chicken in Thunder Bay. And some people don't want to use a colored egg when they're making a pisanka, but this was a green egg, and then I used a dark green dye, so it gives it a sort of an antique look, which I think is pretty cool. And people will often use brown eggs as well. And I find when you use a brown egg, the finished egg looks very rich, almost Victorian colored, rich looking. So there's a lot of variety and a lot of options. Behind us on the shelf, we also have an ostrich egg, and I have yet to make an ostrich egg. Have you done an ostrich egg yet?
No, I have it on my shelf, and
Yes.
I'm going to one day, I promise.
Maybe we'll challenge each other
Yeah.
and start to do it.
Yeah.
I also have a few pisanka here that are from Ukraine. I was gifted these by friends that I met when I first went in 1995. And they were making these pisanka from onion skins. They did not have all the tools that we have in Canada. During the Soviet era, they were not allowed or provided opportunities to keep up their Ukrainian culture. So they asked if I would teach them how to make pisanka when I came back to Ukraine, which I did in future years. But in the marketplace, you could find pisanka such as this. It looks very much like a Hutzulshtina pattern from the Carpathian Mountains, and very, very beautiful. I also have one pisanka here that my mother and I did together. We didn't consult each other on the color scheme, so we have a few different color schemes, but I come from a grape farm, so I really like this pattern with the grapes and the vines. I think it's pretty special. So in addition to the eggs, we have some really cool apparatus here, but we'll be right back to talk about that. Welcome back to Ukrainian Connections, where we're talking today about the art of pisanka. So we've showed you a little bit of our display that we brought of different people's pisanka. There are some amazing artists in Thunder Bay and around the world, exactly. But I want to show you some of the tools that were used to create some of the older pisanka. So these little wooden kiska, this is called a kiska, and it means, I'm just trying to think, stick. It means branch, little branch. It's a different word from kishka, that's blood sausage. Who stole the kishka? That's a different song. Okay, so kiska are used to draw on the pisanka, and these were old ones that my father made. We had a grape farm, so he used the grapevines and just a little piece of stick here. But then eventually, people have come up with cool gadgets. So Theodore Romaniuk, who is the father of Hanusha Romaniuk, who made these pisanka here, and the spouse of Yaroslava Romaniuk, who made this beautiful egg here, he was very ingenious, and he made this gadget that helped you melt your wax. So you didn't need an electric kiska because you were able to put wax in these little Spam lunch meat containers, and he put a little divider in it so that your kiska wouldn't fall in too deep, because you don't want to have a lot of wax, hot wax on your fingers, and we'll explain that process very soon. And he made these little baby food jar things that he put some kind of liquid fuel in, and if it was too hot and your wax was, spitting with heat, you could raise this and have it higher up. So I just think this is the coolest little gadget for heating and keeping your wax flowing to make your activity a lot easier and smoother. And this is a similar one that he made for one person to use, where you could adjust it with the bolt, and it looks a little more modern with a little copper basket here for your kiska, and a more secure basket for your baby food jar that you fill with fluid. Then, after looking at just using a manual kiska, the electric kiska was invented, and several people have made their own versions, and this one was made by a fellow on Ogden Street, and the Romaniuk family had bought it in the 60s and had several good years of use. It's pretty cool, with copper wiring around the metal funnel and a space for the wax to flow in, and so you would dip your wax, and you would have an electric current going through here so that the wax would stay hot all the time. So some very interesting artifacts that have been pulled out of the closet to share with you today. So Mia, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the history and understanding about Pysanky.
Yeah, for sure. So Pysanky have been made back to ancient pagan times. They have been mostly in Eastern European records. They're believed to be given as talismans to people to ward off evil spirits, wish good fortune, good harvest, so things like that. And traditional Ukrainian eggs have been decorated with symbols that carry a lot of meaning. So if you look at most eggs, there's typically certain symbols or imagery that gets repeated. So there's wheat, and as you mentioned before, triangles, things like that, that all have symbolism behind them. In certain animals, there's a lot of kind of chickens and rams that all have different meaning behind them in terms of strength or masculinity, or again, kind of good harvest and good fortune. And then as Christianity came to Ukraine, a lot of the symbols were converted to more religious meanings. Yeah.
So when you give a Pysanky to somebody, you're wishing those, like you said, strength or fertility or masculinity or to them. And one of the things I like about the Pysanky is that there's many lines that are continuous, that is to wish somebody eternal happiness, eternal life, eternal love, eternal whatever you want, I guess. Okay, interesting. So how do you go about making a Pysanky? Can you walk us through the steps?
Sure. So Cathy and I have had great debate about whether to use pencil or not to kind of draw out your lines. I personally have always learned that way. That's how I was taught. So I first start by dividing up my egg into quadrants. So you kind of quarter it, and then you half those again, and just kind of some guidelines to be able to get you to get your main lines as straight as possible or as well divided as you can. So here I have an egg that I've started. I did just the basic lines yesterday. So you kind of start with your main lines, your main dividing lines, so whatever is kind of the main borders or things like that. So you kind of get your base lines in, and then you're going to progressively start filling them in, and then you're going to go through the different colors. So we start first by covering just what you want to be the color of the egg at the time. So whatever you want to stay white, you're going to cover with wax at the time that the egg is white. So right now I'm just working on any lines that I want to be white, and then we're going to dye them through different progression of colors as we move along.
Okay, so I actually happen to have a little display of the progression. So Mia's egg there is still in white, so everything that's covered in wax is going to stay white, and then you dip it into the next color, usually yellow or some light color, and whatever you want to stay yellow you cover with the beeswax. And the beeswax has turned black in this case because I was using a candle, and it gets some carbon in it, so it turns it black, and it makes it easier to see. And some people use colored wax, especially if you're using an electric key. Right?
I was going to say, I always opt for as dark of a color of beeswax as I can.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And then you progress to the next color, whether it be an orange or a blue or a red in this case. And then after you've finished covering everything that you want to stay red, you dip it into your final color, whether it be black or purple, something very rich and dark that will make the colors pop. And then you melt all the wax off. And that's kind of what I call the magical part, where you reveal. It's the big reveal of what, never mind the big wedding dress reveal. This is like even more exciting. Exactly. The big reveal for what your Pysanky will look like. So the pattern that you're doing there, is that one that your Baba made and you're trying to replicate it?
Yeah, so it's one I actually haven't ever done before. So I just, based on the egg, I'm just trying to do my best to replicate it. So I've got it started here, and I keep working on it.
Okay, good. So we also have a little color chart down below here that shows the progression of the colors to use. And some people want to learn so much information about Pysanky, and I've been doing them since I could hold an egg, so I was probably very young. We had chickens on our farm, so I could use as many as I want. It didn't matter. But some people don't want to do that, and they want to get it right the first time. There are a lot of resources online, so people can access that. There's many books. I have quite a few in behind me here. And most people that make Pysanky have many books because it's great for inspiration, it's great for ideas. But we actually have a Pysanky workshop. If you're watching today's show before March 9th, the League of Ukrainian Canadians and the Chaban Ukrainian Dance Group are jointly putting together a Pysanky workshop. We've been doing it annually, except for a year over COVID. And it's a great time to learn how to make Pysanky, to talk with other people that are making Pysanky, and yeah, so it's a fun time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with that, we'll be right back and tell you some more. Welcome back to Ukrainian Connections, where today we're talking about the art of Pysanky. So Mia is busy working with her electric kiska right now, drawing such steady lines and getting the wax laid on top of the egg to cover anything that she wants to keep white. So Mia, once you get to the finished stage, we talked about dipping it in all the dyes and color and stuff. How do you melt your wax off?
So I have always done mine in the oven. We just kind of put it on, I believe, convection on like 200, a low temperature, and you just put it in on a tray with some paper towel, and just small increments of time, just melt a little bit off, wipe it off, put it back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of the eggs that you're doing are whole. You haven't hollowed your eggs. So that would make a difference in the melting. It would probably take a little bit longer to melt.
Yeah, it does,
right?
Because the internal egg isn't going to get as warm as fast. It does take a bit longer, but that's just how we were always taught, and all of our eggs are all full, and they stay that way.
Okay. So I tend to hollow my eggs out now. I was brought up in Southern Ontario, and if we didn't, they would blow up, often in the heat of the summer or the humidity. And so that became a norm to do, and we tend to blow them out with something other than our mouth. We used to do that as a joke as kids, but we quickly moved to tire pumps, and now I blow eggs out using a Dremel to drill the holes so that they're nice and fine and small, and then also use an air compressor and keeping it pretty low so that you don't explode the egg, because it's another opportunity for the egg to blow up. And if you do it before you actually start working on the egg, you can keep the inside of the egg and use it for baking. So it's really handy around Easter time if you're trying to make Easter paskas or babka, which is nice to do. So you're melting yours off in the oven. I usually do mine in the oven as well. Because they're hollowed though, they melt off a lot quicker because they heat up inside quicker. So you have to be very careful, and you always have to undo the plugs first at each end so that they don't explode. There's all these opportunities for explosions. Such excitement in the world of Pysanky making. And if you wanted to melt your wax off with a candle, the important thing is not to hold it over the flame, because the flame will make carbon stain on your egg, and you won't be able to rub that off after. And there are chemicals you can use to take it off, but it's better to avoid it and just hold the egg to the side of the flame, and as soon as it shines, pull it away and wipe it. Because of using a live flame, you always have to be careful that if you're using a tissue paper or a rag of some sort, that you don't start it on fire and it becomes a big wick for you. So one of the things that people often ask is how to store your eggs. So what do you do with your Pysanky?
So we've just usually store them either on like a shelf or in a display case of some kind. The main thing is to usually not have them near direct sunlight. That's usually when kind of explosions happen, or you can tell in some of the older ones, like some of my grandma's here, that you could tell that the sun bleaches them too, so it'll bleach the color over time. So we just try and stay away from direct heat or sunlight.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes if they're whole eggs too, it's good to have like an air, like not in a closed container. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, the other important thing is when we teach how to make Pysanky, as well as when we teach how to store Pysanky, we talk about not putting the egg on a flat surface, because it's oval, it will roll off, and a lot of people forget that. And there's been many an egg flying through the air, falling off of tables. And you especially don't want that to happen after you've finished your egg and made it very beautiful. And we even talk to people about how to carry carry an egg if you're walking around with it to put it into the Easter egg dies. So I brought a few samples of Easter egg die packets. So the dyes that we use are not food coloring. They're actually special dyes designed to adhere to the eggshell. And when you finish doing the white part of your Pysanky, you need to dip it in a vinegar water to take some of the oils off of it that may have come off of your hands, to clean the eggshell a bit. It takes a little bit of the calcium out of the shell, and that helps for the dyes to adhere as well. You can get dyes from many places. In Canada, there's a few companies that sell it, and you can order through the States as well and other places. I prefer to buy the Canadian dyes because I know that they're following safety standards for it. Now, the dyes are not edible and they are considered toxic, so if you're handling them a lot, it's good to wear gloves and not to keep it around food. So if you're displaying them, one of the ways that we often display our Pysanky is around Easter. And do you put Pysanky in your Easter basket?
Yeah, we always do.
Yeah.
We always have for when we go to get our basket blessed at church. We've always had our eggs in there.
Okay.
As many as we could fit.
As many as you could fit, right, okay. Yeah. And there's a style of egg called Pysanky, which is when you just put usually a boiled egg, and you boil it either in onion skin or in a beet color, and it's just a one color egg, so it's different than Pysanky. But that can be put in your basket as well, along with the kubasa and the paska and the babka and your cheese, your cottage cheese, your butter, all the delicious things that you'll have for your Easter breakfast maybe, and the week to follow. So when you're transporting your eggs or carrying your eggs, it is a good idea to put them either in an egg carton or in hard containers so that they don't crush. I know both Mia and Carling and myself have been selling eggs to raise money for Ukraine, and as well as Hanusha and her mother have also been selling eggs to raise money for Ukraine, and some of them I had to ship and mail, and so it was a little tricky to find the right container for that, but we had great success. So we've talked a lot about the making of them and taking the wax off. How do you get yours so shiny?
So we shellac ours or varathane them. So after it's done, after you've melted the wax off, to get that kind of nice shine on it, we use just it's varathane, and we've always just dipped our fingers in, and that's just how my Baba used to do it. So I was telling Cathy that Busha used to varathane ours for years and years. It was only till about 5 years ago, probably 6 years ago, that I actually had to do it myself. So it was very stressful. It was the first time I had to do that, because myself, my parents, my uncle, everyone would always just bring our eggs to Busha to varnish. So so learning to do that myself, I'm getting there. Yeah.
Well, she's taught you well, because your eggs are beautiful, absolutely. So just to recap, anybody who would like to learn how to make Pysanky, we do have our Pysanky workshop in Thunder Bay every year. And there is also a lot of resources in our community, and there's so many Pysanky Facebook pages are like numerous, to find out different ideas, ask different questions, get some tips, and it's a beautiful art. You don't have to be Ukrainian to do it, and it's a lot of fun, and it makes a beautiful gift. Some people make Pysanky all year round, and they gift them for Christmas presents. They hang them on their Christmas tree. They were originally done for springtime in pagan times to bring spring forward, but there's nothing wrong with wishing good to people and giving them as a gift any time of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So thank you to all the people who contributed to today's show, who gave some items for us to showcase and lent them to us. And thank you, Mia, for being our guest today, and to Rogers Television for letting Ukrainian Connections exist.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.